webinar titled Bytes and Bedside. The idea of this webinar is to showcase nurses who are working in digital space and just to hear their story and their career journeys. So this web session will be recorded. So if you have your cameras, you can put your cameras on. That's absolutely fine. But just make sure there's nothing distracting in behind you, and there'll be loads of opportunity to answer questions at the end of the presentation. So, and as much as possible, please keep your mics off. Only if you're asking any question. And next slide. So why are we doing this? Oh, I've gone too fast there. Let's go back a second. Yep. I believe as nurses, we are way more than our titles. So I'm not doing this job because I'm a DT nurse. There's DT in my title. I'm doing it because I believe it's the right thing to do, especially in this climate where AI, digital transformation is taking over. And also to remind ourselves that digital is not the how, it is the how and not the why. Our patient is the primary focus in what we do. So digital is not a band-aid, is our patient is the most important. And I also believe in collaboration. The collaboration is a new leverage, so there's opportunity for us to come together, discuss, and share ideas. So the next slide, and this slide is just talking about what the projection looks like. This is from Professor ChatGPT. It's just sharing what the career projection for digital health. And I've also read an article from the World Economics, World Economics about career progression, and it's nothing different from this as well. So it's important for us to do because it's part of what NMC, the guide NMC provided, uh, and it's also part of our code of conduct. So it's about preserving safety. So digital health issues are not an IT issues. Sometimes they are patient safety issues, and if it's a patient safety issue, it's our concern. So digital health is our concern. So today I have the privilege of having someone I will be discussing today. Her name is Olamidotun Alayerogun, and I will be reading out. I've got some technical issues going on, so bear with me while I read out. Um, I read out some very exciting and motivation information about her. Just bear with me 1 second. I'm going to find it. Okay, so Olamidotun, she is a healthcare professional with a background in nursing and a master's in occupational health, safety and well-being management, and is certified member of OISH. She went from frontline care from occupational health and then transitioned into health IT. She currently works as an Application System Analyst at GSTT, where she bridges clinical insights with digital innovation. Olamidotun has contributed to digital transformation projects with Cority, OH Database, and Epic, with strong experience in stakeholder engagement and change management. She is passionate about enhancing clinical excellence and making healthcare systems smarter, safer, and more efficient through technology. So, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Olamidotun. The floor is yours. It's good to have you, Olamidotun.
Hello, everyone. Nice to be speaking to you all today. Thank you, Tomilayo, for the invite. I'm really honored to be here today.
Okay, so I've got a couple of bits and pieces I think we can cover together today. So we'll be talking about your foundation, what was your story, how your story started, what motivated you, what was the spark that, what was the light bulb moment that made you think, right, digital is my passion. What are your experience? How did you transition your current job? What do you think the future of healthcare will look like? what networking or conference would you recommend, and your final thoughts. So on that note, I'll stop this presentation. I can keep that on. So let's start with you. Let's start. What was the story like? Yeah, from the beginning. Let's start from the beginning.
All right. So I studied nursing. I did a bachelor's of nursing science in Afe Babalola University, Nigeria. And following my qualification, I worked as a bedside nurse in Federal Medical Center, and that was in Jabi, Abuja. For those that don't know Nigeria, Abuja is the Federal, is it Federal Capital Territory? I think so. Yeah, Federal Capital
Something like that.
Territory in Nigeria. So I worked there as a nurse, and that was during my 1 year mandatory National Youth Service Corps. In Nigeria, once you complete your higher education, you are meant to do a 1 year mandatory National Youth Service Corps. So I was posted to Abuja, and that was where I worked as a bedside nurse for the 1 year period. I moved on from there to work as a behavioral health coach. I worked as a behavioral health coach for a health startup company at the time. And part of my skills or part of my role then involved, like we managed contracts for a pharmaceutical company, and then we had to manage the medications that patients who were hypertensive and diabetic were taking at the time. So I was part of the people that did their onboarding onto our system, and then like the regular follow-ups and checkups. So basically that was my job. And then also part of my job then also involved managing the psychological aspects of what these health conditions can actually do to patients. So all of that was my role as a behavioral health coach. And then I moved on from being a behavioral health coach to occupational health nursing. And I worked as an occupational health in Shell. I'm sure a lot of people know Shell petroleum station if you drive across the road, but in Nigeria is Shell Petroleum Development Company, and it's the oil and gas sector. So that was where I worked as an occupational health nurse. And while I was there, a lot of my role involved going onshore and offshore. You have to go to locations at the time. It was also at the peak of COVID, so some of our job description had to shift because of COVID. And we did a lot of fitness to work assessments, return to work assessments, some audiometry tests, spirometry tests. We did some eye tests as well, and first aid for employees that at work. Some of my role also involved the aviation sector while I was still on the Shell. So because I worked on the helipad, there was a lot of noise. So we had to do like noise assessment at the time as well. And health and safety regulatory compliance in the organization at the time. So I didn't really require any special, say, certification to move on to occupational health at the time. I think my basic requirement was having the basic life support training and the ACLS training as well. So that was how I got onto occupational health. And these were the things I did while I was on occupational health. And then I was a contract staff. So your contract may change depending on the month. And your job description may change. It might roll over for like a few months, and then what you're required to do might just change from time to time. So it was just a bunch of things that I did while I worked as an occupational health nurse in Shell, Nigeria. And then from there, I moved to the UK. And then when I moved to the UK, I became a registered nurse in the UK, and I started working at King's College Hospital at the time as a staff nurse. I worked in gastroenterology unit, which was quite different from when I was working in Nigeria at the bedside. I think one of the culture shock when I came here was realizing that the shifts were 12-hour shifts, which I wasn't used to when I worked in Nigeria. In Nigeria then, I think our morning shifts were from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. and then afternoon shifts was 2 p.m. to 8 a.m. I think it was only the night shift that was 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. So when I came to the UK and then I realized that you have to be here from, I think, 7:30 to 8 p.m. It was huge for me. So I took some time in settling down into my role at the time. And then I spoke to my line manager, you know, about the difficulties I was having, especially working in the gastro ward. Gastro ward is basically one of the busiest medicine or medical ward because you have alcoholic patients, you have ileostomy bags, you have wound dressing, you have all sorts of IVs and meds and all of those things. And because that wasn't that wasn't like what I was doing before I moved. It took me a long time to adjust. And then my line manager advised me that if I wanted to go back into occupational health, I could do that. And then I just started looking for opportunities in occupational health. Also, before I left Nigeria, I had already written and passed the NEBOSH. So I had my NEBOSH qualification. NEBOSH is National Examination Board for Occupational Safety and Health. So I already had that qualification in occupational health. I just had it, at the time, just in case I wanted to progress in my occupational health career. And because it's globally recognized, I just thought it was good to have it at the time. So that was really good for me to have done because while I was applying for jobs to go back into occupational health, that stood out in my application. And fortunately for me, I went back into occupational health in the UK. And fortunately, because I was still under the same employer, I really didn't have to do much. I just transitioned back into occupational health. And then I started working as an occupational health practice nurse in the UK after I left the bedside. It was also different because working in occupational health in the NHS is different from working as an occupational health nurse in oil and gas.
Yes.
So the job descriptions also changed. In the NHS, you have to do onboarding, you have to do, new starters checks, and some of this screening for new starters would include blood tests, would include vaccinations, which I wasn't doing in Shell at the time. And then we also did needle stick injury assessments. We did, I think then as a practice nurse, it was just more building my skills on like these vaccinations. I didn't know how to administer a BCG vaccine, not until I started working as a practice nurse. So I'm sure if you check your arms, like mostly on your left arm, you'd see like you have a scar. That's like the BCG vaccine. I mean, I always saw it, I didn't know it. And it was until I started working as a practice nurse in occupational health, that was when I actually knew that. So I had to learn a lot on vaccinations. Like I said, BCG that protects against tuberculosis, hepatitis B, MMR, that's for measles, mumps, rubella, varicella, that's to protect against chickenpox, and then some travel vaccines as well, like yellow fever. So I did that. And then, like I said, blood testing as well for staff members. And then part of my role at the time also involved managing the health of staff members that were living with bloodborne virus diseases like the HIV, hepatitis B, or hepatitis C. So I did all of this as an occupational health practice nurse. And then I had the interest, to develop my career for that in occupational health. And that is when I decided to do my master's in occupational health safety and wellbeing management. So I completed my master's at Middlesex University, London. And then after that, I got promoted to a specialist occupational health advisor. So with specialist occupational health advisor in my trust, you become a band 6. So when I became a band 6, that was when I started taking on more things in occupational health, and that was when I did management referrals. So the bulk of your role as a specialist advisor would be case management with management referrals. So what management referrals is basically, if let's say you have sickness absence or you're having some difficulty at work, say you have musculoskeletal issues or something, and then you speak to your line manager, then they'll say, let's refer you to OH. So that referral to OH is the management referral. And then when you go to OH, you get to have a consultation depending on what the issue is. And then the nurse who is assessing you, it's either a nurse or a doctor. Most severe cases would be done by a doctor. That's the OHP, occupational health physician, and then every other case will be managed by an OHN or a senior occupational health nurse or a specialist occupational health advisor. So after that, after your consultation, you would have recommendations made by the person who has seen you, and then they'll write a report back to your line manager. So that was what I started doing when I became a specialist occupational health advisor. And then I also started doing spirometry. So because occupational health, it changes according to, the contracts that you're on or according to the industry that you're in. So at the time we had clients who required us to do like spirometry. So I was actually happy to do spirometry then because I wasn't doing that as a practice nurse. And because I was already doing that in Shell, it was just good for me to refresh my knowledge. So spirometry is doing a lung function test. That's basically what spirometry is. And then we were also doing audiometry as well for some of our service users at the time. So these were also like good for me, to refresh my skills that I was once doing in occupational health. And then I attended a couple of training sessions, especially for the management referral. Management referral can be pretty tricky sometimes. So you have to understand how to manage and assess, each case. Each case would be different. Sometimes there might just be reasons for you to, I don't know, give different adjustments. So I had to really learn on that. And, I also learned that as well, learned more on that during my master's. And so I was in occupational health, or I was with my employer as King's College Hospital for a period of, I don't know, over 3 years or almost 4 years. And then I moved over to Guy's and St. Thomas Hospital Occupational Health where I became a senior occupational health specialist. And my specialty then was in public health. So like I said, occupational health has different aspects and each day is different. Under the public health contract, I was managing the Southeast London public health contract. I also manage like infection diseases, infection outbreaks, and things like that. Before we go to my story at Guy's and St. Thomas, while I was in King's, that was when I got into, or let me say, that was when I had my first experience working or doing anything that involved digital project. So we use this OH database called Cohort. And fortunately or unfortunately, the company was bought out by another company called Cority. So we had to move over from Cohort to Cority, which involved massive data migration. So imagine we had a trust of, say, over 20,000 staff members, and then with the rest of all our service users, and then you just had to move everybody's data from one old system onto a new system. And it would have been better if it was just like a, say, system upgrade. Say you have your phone and then your phone is telling you a system upgrade. It wouldn't change everything on your phone. It would just, update some things or add like some additional features. This wasn't like that. This was like moving on to a new system entirely. And because this system was built by the Americans, it did not really fit the occupational health needs. Let me put it that way. So we had a lot of problems. We struggled. We had challenges, using the system. And that was when I just started thinking, why does it have to be this difficult? If you had just updated the old system, then we wouldn't be having all of this problems. So I think that was when my interest in digital health initially started. And so we had to go back to the producers of the database. We had to tell them what our problems were. We listed out a bunch of things that were not working for us, and then we needed them to work on all of this. I would also add that King's College Hospital Occupational Health Department was the first OH department in the UK that used Cority. So we were more like lab rats. They were building the system with us. So we had to do a lot of system resets. We had to do like system optimization. All of these things I was learning as I was going. Mind you, we were also trying to carry out business as usual, like doing our normal like work. We weren't canceling appointments. We were still following the normal schedule. So this was when I, spoke to my line manager that, I would like to be involved in this project. And then sometimes it required me to like stay back after, because my standard working hours was 9 to 5. So we'd stay back, work on the system with our business manager at the time, and then we'll have meetings. I would also point out that American time is different from UK time. So sometimes we had to meet like at different times, just to establish what's going on, where we're at. So we had like a color charts, green, red, amber, just to show, okay, this is what we're fixed. This is what, is still ongoing. And the red, we haven't even touched at all. So we had to do a lot of changes to the system. And that was when, I actually got to like working with IT systems. I knew a bit of what was happening at the back end. I went from being an end user to actually being someone that was involved in the configuration, if you put it that way. So that was like a few months before we then started using a new electronic patient record in the trust. We use Epic. I think some of you might know what Epic is. Epic is another American system that a lot of NHS trusts are trying to, use now. And a lot of NHS trusts are already using it. Some of them, they've not started. So when we started using Epic, that was another massive moment for us trust because was just still trying to settle in with Cority, and then you brought Epic. So if we didn't really need to use Epic as occupational health, because the occupational health database would always be different from the main electronic patient record in the trust, just because of confidentiality and things like that. But because when it comes to blood results and the lab and all of that, they needed a centralized system. So what the problem was that staff members would come to occupational health and then they would get tested, and then the result is supposed to show on Epic, but these same staff members are doctors and nurses and all of them that are treating patients. So essentially, they could see each other's results. And that was a massive problem with GDPR, confidentiality, all of these things. So we had to go back to Epic team as well, see how they could resolve this issue. So I was also involved in some of these stakeholder like engagements, and then we created like a breaking glass system that would prevent staff members from, or unauthorized staff members from going into anybody's record. They only made the access for those of us that worked in occupational health and things like that. Again, that just gave me a bit of insight into like the back end of Epic, an electronic patient record, which, I wasn't using before. And then after that, I was the super user for Epic in occupational health. So I had to teach and train a couple of my colleagues and junior colleagues on how to use Epic, on how to order test results. Prior to this, I also trained a couple of my colleagues on how to use the Cority system. And then we had to do a couple of training sessions on how to use Epic as well. And
you volunteered for this super user role as well, yeah?
Yes, I did volunteer for this role as well. And a few months after, when we started using Cority and Epic, we then realized that we had a lot of paper work. because occupational health is paperwork. And a lot of our questionnaires, our forms were in paper, and we were too paper heavy. And then I said to my line manager, why can't we, digitalize some of these things? It would actually save us time, and it would make things, more efficient. Data entry would be faster, and there would be less mistakes and things like that. So we took on that project. And then because my line manager said I brought the idea, I might as well just lead on it. So I led on that project. I had to change a lot of SOPs. SOPs are standard operating procedures, which we use in occupational health because we are now using a new system. So we had to change all of that in our old SOPs. And then moving from paper to digital forms, we also had to change our SOPs. I had to do a lot of liaison with the pharmacy teams to also update our written instructions, PGDs and PSDs, which gave me more insights into stakeholder engagements, coordinating with like MDTs and things like that. So I think all of this is what piqued my interest in digital health. And then moving on to GSTT, when I moved in at the time, they had just started using Cority. So it was like another opportunity for me to do what I had done in King's OH, now doing it in GSTT OH. So
Can I just interrupt you,
yes.
Olamidotun? So I think you've given us a lot to digest in this first few minutes, and I'll just give you some minutes to just I'll give you some minutes while I just go over one of the things you mentioned that just
Okay.
jumped out strongly for me.
Okay.
From the what we have on our slide, you covered your foundation. You've also talked about what your spark was, what made you say, right, I'm going to give this a try. You talk about your experience, and you also talk about briefly about how you transitioned. To be honest, in all everything you've said, a couple of words that jump out at me were words like I discussed with my manager, and my manager said, yeah, that's fine, go ahead. You said something also about volunteering, taking additional tasks on top of your regular job. When you talk about your business as usual, you see had your 9 to 5 to do, but because this was your interest, you volunteered to say, I want to do this and I want to learn. And that was the breaking point, if I can use that word for you. That was a big opportunity for you, and you
Yeah.
went from a gastro nurse to an occupational practice nurse to an advisor, and you were from you became from an end user, you became a super user. You were involved in stakeholders engagement, writing SOPs, PGD liaising, and coordinating with MDT. I intentionally wrote those information down because when in the role, especially in detail, that's the summary of basically what you have to do because you are like that middle person. Yeah, changing, making sure everybody speaks the same language, and you did all of that in your own time. And honestly, I'm not surprised that you're where you are now, because yeah, I'm not surprised at all. So I just want to mention that. Say honestly, I'm just blown away right now. To be honest, that yeah, brilliant, and I'm sure that person's on the call. I've got questions, and they're going to ask questions later on. But say well done. So if you just move on now to what you're doing now. So what do you do now in your role?
Okay, so I recently started working as an application systems analyst. Like I said, following my enthusiasm with digital health projects, the little ones that I had done in my 2 back-to-back roles, I started applying for digital health roles. I just thought, how would you learn? How would you actually develop your skills in it if you're not doing it? So I decided to start applying for digital health roles. And, I won't lie, I didn't get some of these jobs because, I needed like core experience. I needed more and more. So that time also helped me to improve my skills. improve my background, if I'll put that, improve my resume. Yeah. So with each interview, I learned a different thing. I took a different training. I watched lots of YouTube videos. I just self-develop. I think that's another point. Because you're not in school anymore, you don't have like a one-to-one teacher or like a group of friends that you can do group reading. So you have to do a lot of self-development. So fortunately, I saw the advert for this role with GSTT, and then I decided to work on my application. I saw that you would require like a bit of programming language knowledge, and to be honest, that was the first time I'd even heard about it. What they required was like SQL. SQL is SQL. It's a structured query language, which is like Python or Java for people that work in tech, like you would know that. So I had to learn on that. I watched like hundreds of YouTube videos. I did the SQL for data science course. And then I think I also spoke to someone that I knew was already working, in tech and using programming language, just to get a basic knowledge of what it was. And then I prepared well. I did a lot of preparation for my interview. And then during the interview, I, did well, and I was lucky enough to land the role. So in my current role, I I work as an application systems analyst. I support clinical applications, basically working on projects that involve pathology and point of care testing. So point of care testing is like the simple VBGs that we do, like the VBG machines, the blood gases machines. I manage like those ones and how it's integrated onto the bigger electronic patient record, which is Epic. And then I also manage the blood glucose and ketones machines, like what you use to check your blood sugar, how that results from that little machine feeds onto Epic. That's, what I manage in my day-to-day. And then I also do troubleshooting. So you know how people will just ring or put in tickets that maybe something is not connecting to Wi-Fi or something is broken down here or this or that. So we do a lot of troubleshooting and just resolving issues in real time because nurses sometimes they get agitated. And again, when I'm working, I always have empathy because I have been in the clinical role and I know how it's difficult when I'm not seeing the patient's results or I'm not seeing this and all of that. So now that I'm like on the technical side of things, we try to resolve things, as quick as we can. And then I would also be doing some training. I haven't started doing any training, but I think from my previous experience with training my colleagues, I don't think that would be like such a huge deal for me. So it would also be training like junior colleagues on, troubleshooting and, testing of devices. We also work with like the medical equipment device team. So like your ops machine, the VBGs, the radiology machines, so like MRIs, scanners, the CT scan, the CTGs, the baby monitors and things like that. We also like manage how these machines interface with Epic. And then it also involves a lot of liaising with like the suppliers. Like sometimes the suppliers might be like Germans, they might be like, Chinese people, they might be like from different parts of the world because they will be the ones that, built these machines, and then you have to liaise with them. And then we do like a lot of meetings. Sometimes projects might change over time. So once you've completed this project, it might just be moving on to the next thing. So basically that's what, I do in my current role.
Fantastic. I'm glad you said your points you made about empathy and understanding. That leads me to the next question: that what do you think your nursing background would any way in a way or two shape the way you deliver what you do at the moment? I think you've covered it a bit, but if you can just talk about it a little bit more.
Okay, so to answer these questions, I think I'll just talk about like transferable skills. So
Thank you.
as nurses, we have like a bunch of skills at our fingertips that a lot of people would just think it's only needed at the bedside, but really is not. So a good example would be like what I said before, empathy and observation. So how you would observe your patients, or you would have empathy and, just if let's say you're delivering a sad news to your patient or things like that, how to just have this compassion and empathy for your patient. That would also that is transferable to my current role. So say like the example I gave earlier, like trying to troubleshoot issues like, in real time and then give them like fast response. Another thing would be, say, during configuration, you're thinking about the end user. You're thinking that you want to make sure that this app or this database is easy enough to, just is seamless for them to be able to use. They already have a lot of things going on. They're already worried about their patients. They already have ABCDs like they're doing. So the last thing they need is for this new system that you're bringing to just give another headache. So think about the end user and try to build it in a way that just makes things easier for them. So that would be like empathy. I think another transferable skills would be how, as nurses, every day we talk to doctors or the pharmacists or the OTPTs and all of that. All of these things, that's what we do, like the MDT. I'm sure like a lot of us, we've attended a lot of MDT meetings. It's kind of the same thing when you're having like stakeholder engagement or stakeholder management. That's a transferable skill because you're using your communication skill to actually discuss with them and liaise with them. We want to make sure, what's the goal? The goal is that the patient is safe and then we get them back to, good health. It's the same thing when you're doing stakeholder management. What is the machine we're building, or what is the database we're working on? What is the end game? The end game is that we're delivering efficient and effective patient care in a safe way. So that's basically it. Is like your MDT communication skills is just like stakeholder engagement. I think another example would be like risk assessment. I know we do a lot of risk assessment as well as nurses, and it's like saying now that I'm in IT, I do like clinical safety, which is part of like one of the courses that I had to do before I even started my current role. So clinical safety is ensuring that patient receives appropriate care while using like all this huge technology that we're doing now. So with AI, the computers, the databases and all of that. So when you're doing risk assessments, you're trying to see, you're trying to think two steps ahead to make sure that harm doesn't come to your patient and things like that. And then with clinical safety, you're thinking of, mitigating the risk, thinking about what could possibly go wrong, thinking about, say you're releasing a new system at 5 p.m. tomorrow. What are the things that you're actually going to put in place so that, you don't interrupt the service? Yeah, we're trying to just make sure that the service runs smoothly and make sure that, if something does go wrong, what are we doing to actually make sure that the impact is not great and it is not catastrophic or it doesn't affect the patient? So basically, risk management or risk assessment feeds into clinical safety. I think another thing is teaching. We teach ourselves all the time as nurses. We teach our patients as well. Say you're teaching your patient how to give themselves like insulin injection. That is you as a nurse, teaching. It's also the same thing as me now training end users. Do you understand? So I would say like some of these things are the skills that I've been able to transfer into my current role. And most of all is communication. We do a lot of talking every day. So it's just what you have as a nurse that you can transfer. I hope I was able to answer your question.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I was just going to go on to ask, did you struggle trying to connect that transferable skill to what you do at the moment when you were preparing for those interviews? Yeah, because I can see you've done a lot of work. You've done a lot of work. Obviously for you to have this job now, you must have done your own work. But when you were looking at getting into this job, did you struggle trying to see how this bedside skills in code that we have is transferable? Did you have to unlearn a lot of things, or what did you do?
So I would just go back a bit to even when I was working in occupational health. So there's this thing that my line manager used to say. She would say, drop your nursing hat, put on your occupational health hat. Because
Okay.
there's like a line, sometimes you can be too empathetic to the clients, and clients in this case would be like the staff members. Say a staff member is having a difficult time in their ward, and then for some reason the manager is just unable to I don't know, implement the recommendations that you've made. And then my line manager would remind me that at the end of the day, we're like the middlemen. So you're loyal to the trust, you're also loyal to, the staff member, and you should try and come out of it when you can. So just always know like the definition, in your job role. I think another thing would be, but another part of my struggle would be not knowing what my skills were. Like the last question I answered, I was able to actually tell you this skills. I didn't know what my skills were initially. I just knew, like, I knew how to talk, or I knew how to research, or I knew, like, I didn't know there was a term for it, if that
Right,
makes any sense.
right.
So it was until I started doing my interviews and then I started researching more that, okay, I can actually do this. Okay, I can actually do it. I don't have a project management certification, but I've been involved in a couple of projects. And somebody asked them one day that, oh, do you know that, like, it was even my new line manager, because I was asking, it was like I started and then I said, in nursing, you know how you have like an induction plan, and
Yeah,
maybe like this is what you do for the next 4 weeks. In IT, it's totally different. You don't
yeah,
have an induction plan. It's as the job is coming, you just start
yeah,
getting yourself to it.
yeah.
And then I said, oh, don't you have things that are like maybe amber, green, red? She's like, oh, now you're talking like a project manager. And I'm like, I'm not a project manager. Like, I've not even done, I don't even have any certifications in this. So sometimes I don't know all these things that I have, but the moment you actually start reading, maybe talking to people, and then they start highlighting your skills for you. You just start jotting it down. A friend of mine even told me that I should have like a scoreboard kind of thing where I document all the things that I have done. Because
Right.
over time you realize that even, let's say you've spent, I don't know, 3 years, 5 years working in bedside nursing, you've actually done a lot of things, but because we are not recording these things, we don't actually see it. So I think part of my struggle was not identifying what my skills were and not actually knowing that these things were transferable skills.
Yeah, I like the way you answered the question, and I like the point you made about documenting, because we don't do that in nursing per
Yeah.
se. We just say when you introduce yourself, I'm a nurse, and you just leave it there. Like, so what do you do? We just what have you done the last 5 years working as a stroke nurse?
Mm-hmm.
What have you done in the last 4 years working as a A&E nurse? And
Mm-hmm.
then we struggle to look for examples because we don't know that, yeah, this what we're doing every day. They are huge leadership skills.
Mm-hmm.
They are,
Mm-hmm.
you are project managing. You are a charge nurse of a 20-bedded ward, and you are to look after the patient from when the patients were handed to you to the
Mm-hmm.
following morning, and and you came out well. Boy,
Mm-hmm.
that is nothing short of project managing.
Yes.
But we don't. Yeah, I totally agree with you. We don't put it the universal term to it. We just think,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, I'm a nurse, I'm a nurse. So from what you said, I think personally, for a lesson for me, I'm going to go back and I'm going to be documenting all
Yeah.
my achievements, what
Yes.
I've done on a daily basis, and then hopefully I can also put the correct term, the current universal term to it, so that when I'm talking to somebody who is not a nurse, they can
Mm-hmm.
understand what I mean. Yeah, and yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you. You also
Yeah.
said something earlier on about not having a project managing certificate.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure a lot of person have asked you that what certificate did you have to do? What
Yeah.
training did you have to do? Can you just tell us a bit more about that?
Okay. So, like I said, I had to do a lot of self-development, and
Mhm.
I didn't have a roadmap, if I'll put it like that. In fact, there's no roadmap. There's no, oh, follow this. This is how you're going to do it, because each person's journey is different.
Mhm.
So I think what helped me was identifying my niche at first. I knew
Mm.
that I was I'm a bedside nurse, so I'm a registered nurse, and then now I'm working in occupational health, and then now I am interested in, transitioning into digital health. What things do I need? So I did that, and then I also sat myself down to actually, tell myself, if this is what you want to do, what are the steps that you need to take? So one of my interviews, I think my interviews also helped me. And I would just say this, that if you're having an interview, please always make sure that you note things down. Even if they don't offer you the job, ask them
Mhm.
for a proper feedback, and then
Mhm.
you can take a lot out of that.
Mhm.
And even in your application phase before you even submit an application for the job, read the job description, read the person specification, because it would show you what it is that they want, and you would identify, oh, I don't have this, oh, I have this. So I think these things helped me. I think one of the courses I did was the NHS Project and Change Academy, which I
Mhm.
did is an e-learning course. I also did
Yeah.
the clinical safety officer intermediate
Yeah.
training.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that before, but because I was applying for a job for a clinical safety officer, that was when I did that training. Another training that I did, like I said before, was the SQL for data science course. And then I did healthcare IT support course on Coursera, which is funded by John Hopkins. That's a really good course to actually do. And
Okay.
then I did the Foundations of Project Management by Google. And then
Okay.
I did the business analysis in digital health course. And I
Right.
think I also did a course from PMP, which was about applications of managing the Gen AI for project managers. So I did like all of these courses, or I was able to know what to do because I researched on, the skills I'm supposed to have, or the kind of training that I ought to have. And then reading through the job description and person specification helps me to narrow it down. Then being active on LinkedIn, because you don't know it all. Like, no one is an island of knowledge. So you will just hear from other people what they've done, and then you read, research, see if it's something that you can do. And then I also use ChatGPT. ChatGPT would actually point you in the right direction. I
I was
won't.
waiting for that.
Yeah. So ChatGPT would you can just, is like you're chatting with your friend. Oh, I'm here. This is where I'm at with my career, and this is where I'm looking to be. What sort of courses would you, encourage? And then you can list out, like, I don't know, 100 courses. Obviously, you can't do everything in a day. You just try and see what fits into your niche, what fits into the role that you're applying for. So these are the courses that I did, that helped me to land my current role.
Fantastic. Thank you. I like what you said about finding your niche and using Professor ChatGPT to guide you into what course that you did eventually. I'm very conscious of time now. I'm just going to ask you about what networking conferences would you recommend? You said something about LinkedIn, and honestly, I'm going to support that. That if you're on this call and you're looking at, oh, I want to progress in my career, I think it's a crime if you're not on LinkedIn. You
Yeah.
should be on LinkedIn because
Yeah.
that is where you connect and link with people. So let's talk about networking opportunities. Did you have to attend any, or what would you
So,
recommend?
so with networking, I'm also just realizing that it's something that, you have to do. So I would say I haven't attended a lot. I recently attended the launch of the digital center at Cape Verde, and that's not in the UK. So I don't think, it would make sense to a lot of people. But yeah, I actually attended it because of my interest in digital health, and seeing how, that would just help me, if I decided to, I don't know, have like digital transformation projects in Nigeria or in Africa later on. But in the UK, I would advise you attend the Rewired. The Rewired conference is, highly spoken about, and I couldn't attend it this year. I'm looking forward to attending it next year. I think another one is the Digital Health Summer School. The Digital Health Summer School, I think this year is going to be is it in June or in July? And I think that's in
July, yeah,
Coventry or so. I
yeah.
think that's a good one. And then there's a digital transformation event at Birmingham, and that's in September. So that's also good for you to attend. And another one is the HET, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, HEET conference. So the HET conference is also in October. And then there's another one, is it Giant? There's a Giant digital health conference as well in December. So from the top of my head, these are the ones that, I am looking forward to attending. There's always a bunch of them. So LinkedIn is a good way to actually keep in touch or stay in line with all of this news, because even if you didn't know about it before, someone else is speaking about it, and then you will just learn about it through that.
Fantastic, brilliant. So the first assignment for anyone on this call is that if you don't have a LinkedIn account, don't worry, your sins are forgiven before now. But from today, you need to go back, create a LinkedIn account. They should start by following yourself, right? That brings me to the next question. If anyone wants to reach out to you going forward, where
Yeah.
is the best place to find you?
I think LinkedIn is the best place to find me. My name Olamidotun Alayerogun. You would find me, on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to connect with everyone.
Fantastic. So I'm hoping that you will have hundreds of connect requests by the time you log onto your LinkedIn tomorrow, because a lot of persons on this call will do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, fine, brilliant. So your final thoughts. I'm just looking at the time now. We've not opened the floor for questions. What are your final thoughts before I open the floor for questions?
I'm just going to try and keep it short. I would say show up, always ask questions, volunteer your time as well. Let your voice be heard. Research on your niche, identify what your skills are, and see how they can be transferred to other roles. When you're applying for jobs, please focus less on the job title and more on the job description, because some job titles will be like, you see, oh, I'm like, I don't think I can do this, but you actually haven't read the job description. So please focus less on the job title and more on the job description. Make use of digital tools, like I said, AI, ChatGPT. They are there to help us. They're not the enemy. Like, this is the new era, so we should actually make use of them. And then harness opportunities, network with people that inspire you, attend networking events, just put yourself out there, really.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. So, just looking at the time now, I'm going to give people the opportunity to ask questions now. So, if you got any question, you can either put it in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask your question. We got say 5-10 minutes to go now. So, if you have a question, please do now. I'm just going to see if I've got any hands on in the. I haven't. There's no hands on at the moment, and the mics are off. At the mics are still okay. 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 Somebody else got their hands up. I'm just going to look at it very quickly. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the first person I think is Isaac. Isaac, do you want to ask your question?
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your story. I really do appreciate it. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Yes, we can.
Yeah. My question is a quick one, because I've been in some networks before where their nurses were interested in going into the digital space and looking for new roles in digital spaces. But I know people need to do their homework and research. But then there's also this challenge where jobs in such roles are limited, because I don't think it's a role that usually requires too much hands-on, and people struggle with looking for roles that will fit, that reflect this digital requirement. Like in your trust now, for example, you mentioned something about forgetting what name you called it earlier, the system that you are using.
Epic.
I can't remember that. Epic, yeah. Epic, yeah. So that name is synonymous with your trust, but for other trusts it might be different. I think some people might not know how to navigate searching for jobs in digital roles. I don't know if there's an advice you could give to guide people on how to search for roles that are digitally nursing. that may not necessarily have to do with medication prescribing and IT, but it's still digital in nature. I don't know if you get the point I'm coming from.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just if you feel there's something you can say about how people could navigate searching for jobs that are within the digital space that nurses can key into.
Okay.
Thanks.
So thank you for your question. To answer that, I'll just say two things. One, LinkedIn again. LinkedIn is a good place. You would just tailor your search to certain things, and you would find that is a really good tool for showing you jobs. The owner of this webinar, Tomilayo, she also posts job roles like every Sunday, so you can just put the notification up so that anytime she posts, you would just get notified about the jobs. So that's two things. Sorry. Third is Track. Track is actually a good system. I'm sure all of us apply for our jobs using Track. So what you can do is don't go into nursing and midwifery because you're not looking for nursing and midwifery roles. Go into the administrative roles. So when you put on your job search that you'd see like nursing and midwifery, administrative, this, that, just go into the administrative section and then you'd see more of these digital health roles. They don't post them under nursing and midwifery, unfortunately. And then instead of having to like log into Track to look for these jobs all the time, you can actually create a daily email being sent to you by Track. So if you just tailor your job search to, I think is a job search by, is one of the two. So just see what I think it's job search by email. So if you put job search by email and then you put the location that you want, you put the job types that you want, you put the band that you want. You maybe not put the bands because sometimes it might limit like certain bands, but if you put the location, you put the job types that you want, so it would be like admin jobs or things like that, then it can send you notifications to your email every day. So these things or these points are things that I have used personally and I have found them really helpful. So I believe that, you can also use this and they would help you in your job search for digital health roles.
Is that okay, Isaac? Yeah, you're happy with that?
Yeah, I'm happy. I didn't even know Track, that you could use Track to search for just managerial jobs because I used NHS jobs before. So yeah, I just learned something new now about Track. Thank you so much.
Perfect. So I think the next person is Tola. Tola, you got your hands up. Yeah, could you unmute yourself? Yep.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening, and thank you so much. I could actually relate with with some of the things that you said, because I'm also in occupational health, and I do occupational health practice nurse as well. So, which is quite interesting. So, with all the quality and all of that, I can actually relate. And interesting enough, I've been trying to see how I can transition into project management. I've done the training, the theory part of it, but I think I'm the kind of person that I like to do hands-on, and I like to be able to prove myself in whatever role that I find myself. And because I've not been able to do that, although I know you've explained how our skills are transferable and all of that, but I still feel this hold back where I'm not even able to apply for jobs because I think I'm not confident enough. And I think confidence plays a major role in whatever you do. So my question is, are there places where I can actually offer my services, maybe like volunteer, to be able to just get the skills, to be able to say, oh, I've done this on this role as a project manager rather than say as a nurse, because I do have a background in A&E as well, emergency nursing. So yeah, that would be my question. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I know it's a bit tricky sometimes not having that experience. I think one of the reasons why I wasn't offered a job was because they said I didn't have senior management experience, which was really hurtful because I did every other thing well. I just didn't have the experience. So I can absolutely relate. What I can advise is try to speak to your line manager and see if there are projects that you can actually do in occupational health. So a good example would be, say you're taking charge of the this year's flu vaccination campaign. So if you're the one taking charge of the campaign, you're planning how to get the vaccines, how to liaise with the NHS. I don't know what we do Southeast London, so I'm not sure what region you have. So see, like you would have to liaise with them. You would have to liaise with pharmacy, and then you would have to do like a lot of maybe poster printing and just getting everyone aware that the vaccine is going to start on so date and this and that and things like that. So flu vaccine campaign on its own is a project, and that you can do within occupational health. That's one project. Another thing is say training. So I don't know if you use Cority now. If you're training your colleagues, or maybe there are new updates to Cority, or maybe you just find a problem in your department and you see how you can resolve this. Like I said, I saw that we were using a lot of papers, and then we have to move over these papers to Cority. That in itself is a project, because you have to talk about resources, the time, people, and I don't know, money that you would need for these things. So you already have the knowledge of project management. You just need to use this knowledge that you have in something. Like you said, you learn hands-on. So even if you're not doing like these things in your department, try and volunteer, like you've said. It might also be in the trust. Sometimes you just see like on the, I think it's the weekly bulletin, staff bulletin, they'll put like certain things. They'll say, oh, we need volunteers for this or that. You can also volunteer in the trust. You can also volunteer, like if you search online, like places that you can volunteer and just do like project management. So these are the things that, I can suggest that would help you to showcase your skills or express your skills as a project manager.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah, thank you. I hope that's helpful, Tola. I'm very conscious of the time. We started a bit
Sorry.
late. Yeah, no, that's okay. And Miriam, if your question is very quick and short, we might be able to take your question. Miriam, is she still there?
Yes, I am. Good evening.
Good
Hi.
evening.
Okay, so I just want to ask about robotics in surgery. That's the minimal invasive aspect of surgery. I
Okay.
don't know if there is any particular maybe master's program or training one should have or attend before one is able to work in that aspect of nursing.
Are you asking in terms of a theater? Are you a theater nurse, Miriam?
I want to be.
Okay. I think off the top of my head now, and I think Olamidotun might have something different. I think the best thing would be to get into theater where the robotic is being used first, to get your head around what the system is like. In some trusts, they don't use robotic. In some, they don't use, why some they do. So you want to get yourself familiar with working as a theater nurse first, and then I'm sure you'll be have opportunity to ask the ward manager, to ask people how you can move your career forward and work in that area, if that makes sense. Have you got anything to add, Olamidotun?
No, I think what you said is brilliant. I can't even think of anything else. So yeah, I think you get in first and then see how you can work your way from there. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. I'm really sorry. That's all the question we can take for now. I've just put this slide up. If you are interested, please look for these networks. You can find them on LinkedIn and join, be an active member of these networks. And please be in touch. Drop us an email, contact me on LinkedIn. You can contact Olamidotun as well. My laptop is really playing up today, so I haven't got a link to the feedback form. So please, I will be sharing the link to the feedback form. I will attach that to the end of the newsletter. I'll be sharing out eventually. So please complete the feedback form. It will make a lot of difference for me, and I will appreciate it. It will just help me, help us to know how best to make these seminars better and better for you, and how much we must. Yeah, I like how it works. Just to know what we need to face and what we need to look at specifically. Thank you very much, everyone. Special thank you to Olamidotun for your time today. I hope this is not going to be the last of you. Yeah,
Hiya,
thank you.
sorry, you skipped the last slide quite quickly. Do you mind going back so I can take a screenshot, please?
Yeah, no problem. 1 second. Is it the one with the link to the
Just with the different networks that nurses can
Oh
join.
yeah, okay. Bear with me 1 second. I'm not sure what I've done now. I'll click on something. Right, let's cancel that and let's go back. The
Thank you very
slide.
much.
No problem. Where is my? I'm not sure what I've done now, but let's try. Oh yeah. Nope. Hang on. Yeah, there. Yeah, it is. Yes. Can you see that now? Have we got
Yes,
it?
we can see it. Yeah, we got
Yeah.
it. Yes,
Yeah.
thank
Perfect.
you.
Perfect. All right. Take care, everybody.
Thank
Thank you
you
for
so
coming on the
much.
call and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.